Okay, so permissions and responsiveness. And now they're talking about permissions in, denying or controlling access to certain resources. These may be CRUD resources. There's your review from last day: create, read, update, and delete. Obviously, some users should have more permissions than others. If you're just a regular sign up off the internet type of user, then you shouldn't be able to go in and reset passwords and all that kind of stuff. So we have to add some controls to that. We're going to do some really simple permissions type controls today in demo. And we're also talking about responsiveness. And what this is referring to is responsive web design. In that you all have realized this, I'm sure, that websites look different on your cell phones than they do on your desktop computer or your laptop. So, and we're also kind of like, you guys got an introduction to GitHub right off the bat this time around. And that was really just a happy accident because we were having so much problems with the Wi-Fi in that other room. So, we can do a little bit of review if you think it's worthwhile, but I trust up until this point, you guys have all been committing your changes to GitHub. Any exceptions here? No. Sounds like we probably don't need to talk about that at all, really, then. That will definitely be something included in the next part-time course. Really, GitHub should be the first thing we do. Today we're going to make sure that the user is logged in. And we're going to talk, if this user has certain permissions, this user is an administrator, that user should have a higher level of access and control. And we'll talk about responsive changes, which actually you also got an introduction to really early on as well, just by virtue of having had that flaky Wi-Fi. So strange how that worked out in our favor. So yeah, if you want to access the resources, you want to create, read, update, and delete certain resources, you need to be logged in. So you guys have already kind of done some of this. What we have that helps us to make these broad sweeping access controls in Sinatra specifically are these before filters. So you can attach a before filter onto basically any route, including all the routes, and have it check your status. So just given this little snippet of code here, you can probably figure out what's going on. If someone is trying to create a new post, this new should be give away that this is a GET request, which is retrieving that form that would allow you to fill in the blanks, upload a photo or whatever you're doing in Finstagram. And then it checks, has this user logged in? If the user hasn't logged in, then send that user to the login screen instead of the post screen. It's as simple as that. As I said, you can do this on anything or on everything if you like, and you can even use regular expressions to narrow down these access points or to detect these different access points. So now when we do get responses, typically a successful, a successful response is 200. We have these, what we call HTTP codes. And I guarantee you, just by virtue of you guys having seen the World Wide Web, I'm sure you've seen 404 not found. I mean, obviously, who hasn't? 404 unauthorized or even 500 server error. These are all very common. And these are codes attached to the responses sent by the server. And if you're curious about what different kinds there are, I always like to show this to these classes. The HTTP status dogs, and these guys are supposed to be funny, and they kind of are. I think I like dogs. Whoop. So I can make that a little bigger. There we go. So yeah, this is kind of giving you an idea of what's happening here. So here's like the one we all want to see, 200 okay. Just different guys here. Non-authoritative information. I just like looking at the pictures more than anything. This one, every time I see it, it's just like, man, that is so rude. I can't even think. This is like partial content. Man, just awful. Yeah, all sorts of good guys. So when you're at the 200 level, this generally means success. 300 means that you're being redirected somehow. This is also kind of success. For example, this is stuff you wouldn't really see. But if you say access a non-encrypted site, a non-secure website, oftentimes, usually you get redirected to a secure website. So you would get a 301 response, which would then direct you to the secure site. I say this usually just because this is the way it should happen. It doesn't always, but that's what it does. So 300s, not modified. So this guy, yeah, every time I see something else, I don't think I've even noticed that one before. Switch proxy, permanent redirect. Oh, and then we got to 400. We got usually not a server error, but some sort of error in the request. So here's the very generic one. It's been a bad request. Maybe it got mangled, or maybe there was a solar flare or something, and the data got mangled in transmission. 401, unauthorized. This is the one we're contending with today. Paywall, forbidden, not found. All sorts of good ones. Nice. Method not allowed. Conflict. Gone. Yeah, I like that one. I used to have a dog that could jump a fence like that. Shoot. Length required. Too long. Very funny. So you got up to these 400. Yeah, this one's kind of a like. I don't get it. I don't get the gig. I don't know what that means. All right, so 420.
418.
Yeah, and these are both of these are kind of funny, right? This I think was like kind of a specification created as part of an April Fool's Day gag.
If you want to get 420, you should reread that a few times.
Yeah, the 420 one you see on Twitter actually when like the fail whale comes up. I don't use Twitter myself, but that's the status code. So you do actually see it in the wild every now and then. What else we got? Upgrade required. Tons of different requests. And then you get up to these 500. These 500 errors typically mean that there's something on the back end that's has gone wrong. They're not very helpful typically to the client side, but oftentimes like bad gateway would be a server misconfiguration or internal server, or it could mean anything from like, this the app like Sinatra crashed to database connection failed or anything. All sorts of stuff. This one, if it's just taking too long, gateway timeout. Loop detected, and there you go. And so those are the HTTP status dogs, but there's also like I think status cats and like basically anything for whatever animal catches your interest. I guess I'm a dog person, I guess, even though I don't own a dog. Okay, so those are some of the status codes. Always enjoy reviewing those. And here's a conditional access. So this is something that you would put into a filter, and you can just test. You can say, well, has this user been granted administrative access? Or in this case, it's like, well, has this user is this user trying to edit a comment, right? So here's a comment here. It's asking, well, is the current user the same as the user that created this comment? If not, then 401, forbidden. You can't do this. This isn't yours. Don't touch it. So yeah. So in this case, we show the user a message that they don't have permission to change this comment or delete this comment that they didn't first create. So now we're going to jump into something totally different. I mean, none of this is different, right? But this is definitely kind of a fractured lecture in that we start with access controls and before filters, and then we move into responsive design, which is arguably, I guess, a broader topic, I suppose. But really, all that is encompassed in this notion is this idea that we start here at the mobile level. We develop for the mobile first. And then as we get more screen real estate, say as with the tablet or with the laptop or with large desktop screen, we start adding more and more stuff. And this is kind of where I changed the demonstration from the last cohort. I'm going to show you a CSS framework that is very nice for doing this kind of stuff. It's not my preferred one, but I think it's the most popular one. I think you're going to get a little bit out of it. So here's some examples. Whoops, go back. The Sasquatch Festival. So these are the good, the bad, and the ugly examples of responsive design. Now, I personally, as I'm often fond to brag, have met 3 people who claim to have seen the Sasquatch, all in northern Manitoba. And then I actually just met a guy not too long ago. I was driving out to Morley. I was giving this guy a ride. He says, yeah, there's Sasquatch in Alberta. That's where they say this in the stretch of the forest. I've never heard of that, but yeah, Sasquatch sightings are very common in Manitoba. Less common in Alberta. Surprisingly less common in BC, because you think they'd all be hiding out there. So this is an example of great responsive design. Like, look at how it changes as the real estate gets bigger. It looks good on the cell phone. It looks good on the laptop. If I close this, even more functionality. Well, maybe not more functionality, but it still looks really nice. It's nice, well laid out. It meets modern expectations. It's like I'm certainly no designer, but I know what I like, right? It's like, I like that one, and it looks good. Can you see like how these things like the menu changes if you're looking at it on a cell phone, and if you're looking at it on a bigger screen, then you just have these menu options available right at hand. So that's an example of like good responsive design. And again, I have to reiterate this point. We start here. We start on the phone because that's usually how people access these websites typically. If you're making a website for yourself, or if you want to change careers, you're always going to be wanting to be able to pull out your phone and say, yep, this is my last project. And you should twist it, turn it, and it should look good. That's how you're going to get clients, how you make money. So let's look at the bad, toronto.craigslist.ca. Now, in fairness, I don't even think that this one's even that bad anymore. I think we're going to have to find a better example of bad responsive design. The first time we did this course, this was way, way worse. Oh, what is this now? Domain, is that French? Domain 2 violation? What is that? Did I get the right one? Craigslist.ca.
They redirected you somewhere.
I'm going to just try that again. Oh, I did Craigslist, so I'm not sure what that is. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is basically the the desktop or laptop version, and yeah, it's ugly, right? Is it fair to say that it's bad responsive? I don't know. See, it actually kind of scales not. Well, no, it is pretty bad. Here, let me refresh. Hang on. It looks. Oh no, see, it's not bad, right?
That's not bad.
Yeah, see, it's ugly, but it is responsive.
Usable.
But as far as plain websites go, here's the most famous one of all. There's like nothing there, right? It does scale responsibly, but this is also just a very, very plain website. So it's getting better. Every time I show this one, it just keeps getting better and better. And pretty soon there's not going to be any bad examples left. Until we get to this one. This one inexplicably still exists. I'm not going to. Space Jam movie. Now, I don't recall ever seeing this. I know Michael Jordan was in it. But yeah, this is definitely just an example of all around bad. And it's like, when did this movie come out? Like 1992? And there's still this website maintained for Space Jam. And it's like, this was not the dawn of the web by any means, but this was very early on. So at some point, this was probably right on trend. Nowadays, this doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to refresh it. Hang on. Well, I guess it is refreshing. But you can barely read it, right? It's like the fonts don't get bigger. The background's just terrible. It's like, this is just brutal. I know, yeah. So anyway, this one's taken forever. There we go. For your reference. Just funny, I guess. All right. So continuing on here. We can learn the dimensions. We can determine what kind of device we use by using these CSS media queries. These are very very valuable, very powerful. And you may or may not remember, because I kind of like took those pictures of the Grapes of Wrath, and then I had like the Grateful Dead or something. I was like on some sort of gratefulness kick or something. I'm not entirely sure, but that was like in the very first week that we had. And I expanded it depending on the size of the screen. This is very useful in changing the appearance to fit the screen size. So this is just pure CSS. I'm going to show you a little bit of what we call Bootstrap, which I think you might like a little bit better. It's hard to say. I don't know, but I think it's going to be valuable for you to see. But these media queries take all sorts of different parameters. Min width, of course, is just one of many, and there's going to be a max width and all that kind of stuff. And there's also like a portrait orientation versus a landscape orientation, depending on which way your device is turned at the time. You can control all that. If you CSS is not something I'm too fond of, but it is a very, very powerful tool if you learn how to wield it. Especially for people interested in the design or the visual appeal or aesthetics and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, create for mobile first. This makes you put the most important content on the page. This is more like marketing talk. I consider myself an amateur marketer at best, but this is a very valid point, right? You don't want to just waste your users' time. If you have a small screen to work with, you're going to tend to focus on the message you want to deliver as quickly as possible. Likewise, you generally come up with simpler designs. Now, it is true that mobile devices have less power. I don't know that this is like a really great talking point, though, because the devices in our pockets are very powerful, right? And, I guess it's still valid. It's easier to browser to scale up than a phone to scale down, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm totally on board with that point, but the first point's definitely. So we talked about Git. You guys have all been doing this. That's so fantastic. That's definitely going to be a change in future cohorts. In the past, we have just left this until today, which I mean, in retrospect, is just kind of silly. You guys need to be committing this and making these changes. So this is all review. You want to see the differences that you've made, or you want to see new files that are waiting to be tracked. You type git status. This one's wrong. This should be git commit -am. I wonder if I can fix that. I'm going to fix it right now. Git commit -am. So one thing I never actually really explained to you, but you should sort of take the present tense. You should give a message in your commits that tells you what is going to happen if you pull this change. So say get updates to interface, or make a landing page responsive or something like that. It's not like telling what you did. You don't say, oh, I made the landing page responsive, or I took these steps. It's never in the past. It's what you speak as though this is what's going to happen once you pull these changes. So a minor point. You guys may or may never see Git again, but it's what people do when they're working on teams, especially. You want to bring in old changes, or sorry, not old changes. You want to bring in new changes. You say git pull. You want to push your changes back up to GitHub or to wherever your repository is. You say git push. And I think it's this last class on Wednesday that will actually be pushing it in a different direction to a Heroku repository, so that you can deploy your Finstagram applications into production, so to speak. So this is what you will be doing for Finstagram. Now I've got 37 minutes and some brand new stuff to show you. So we're going to get on that, and hopefully I won't go over time. So I can get rid of this stuff, Space Jam, Sinatra setup. So, okay, so this is the basic skeleton stuff, and you guys should have seen something very familiar. Now, was it last day or the class before that you guys did bcrypt for user logins. When was that? 2 classes ago. So there's a little bit of a reminder. Here's the schema that I created. I don't even have that avatar URL. I'm trying to like put this thing as simple as possible. So I have a username column in my user table. I have an email column. I have a password hash column. You guys all know this one, right? Password hash is that encrypted password that the user provided. And just for the sake of demonstration purposes, I have this administrator Boolean flag. So either this user is an administrator, which is true in the table column, or this user is not an administrator, which means that value is false. And then these 2 magic timestamp columns, which put the created at and updated at columns in the table. So to go along with that, I created this user model. And this just defines a couple of methods. It requires the bcrypt gem, includes all those methods and modules and all that stuff. And then it overwrites these methods. This gets the password. This assigns the password. That's how we override that equal sign operator when we're doing this kind of stuff. So all this does, is it takes the password that the user provided, unencrypted, passes it through this encryption algorithm, and saves it to the password hash. So if anyone cracks your system and they steal all your data, they still won't be able to guess the passwords. That's why we do it, right? Basically. And it's also kind of like a courtesy to your users, because you shouldn't be looking at their passwords. Nobody should. It's better for everyone if no one knows except the user who created the password. So that's all ready to go. SQLite seeds. Oh yes, I also created some seed data. So I just made 3 hypothetical users, user admin, so to signify that this is in fact the administrator, some guy and some other guy, and they all have just secret passwords. Their passwords are secret, and this guy has the privilege of being the administrator, so I set that flag to true. So I haven't actually made this database yet. Let's say bundle exec break. It looks like I do have a database there, so I'm going to actually drop it first just to be on the safe side. So that SQLite 3 file should go away. And then I'm going to create a new one. So what was ever there is now gone. Migrate. This, of course, runs the code contained here. This will actually create that user table, if I did everything correctly, and seed that data. So everything in this seed file, I'm going to have 3 users signed up, one of which is going to be an administrator. Oops. Seed, there we go. All right, looks pretty good. And, we can look back over this stuff. I don't see any errors, don't see any stack traces, nothing. Everything looks pretty good to go. So now here's where the scripted part comes in. I got to find out where I'm at. Okay, so Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a CSS framework. This was created by Twitter, and lots of people use this guy. I think it's called Get Bootstrap. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, this ooh, sounds like thunder out there.
Good thing we're all plugged in the power lines, right?
Yeah, really. Well, no, I don't have mine plugged into the ground, but yeah, I don't know. I've never actually had a computer crash because of lightning, but I am definitely the type that will shut down if something crazy starts happening. But Bootstrap is one of at least 2 options that I know of. I actually prefer one called Foundation, or it's called Zerb Foundation. These kind of do the exact same thing. It just gets you a lot of nice styles right out of the box, and it gives you a lot of that cool stuff, like on that Sasquatch festival, where the menu collapses when you get down to cell phone size, and it expands when it gets up to laptop size. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I personally prefer Zerb, the Foundation one, but I'd say Bootstrap is probably way more popular. So if you're a beginner not quite, you're a little shaky on how this stuff works, Bootstrap might be the better option for you, just at least to get going with. So there's lots of different ways we can do this. And I think probably the easiest and fastest way is to use what's called a CDN, or Content Distribution Network. And these are just, services that provide this software for you to download, and it typically makes your website go faster, and it handles all the caching and all this kind of nice stuff. So I'm going to find a Bootstrap CDN, just like that. And not a bad idea just to kind of go with the top pick, most popular one. That's fine. Now I just know. Oh yeah, actually this will be fine. So two files I need. I need the CSS files. So this is all that stuff that you saw. And I need the JavaScript. And this is what makes the menus go up and down and all that kind of stuff. So we need both of these things. Now I took careful notes here so I don't mess up the import. And I'm going to lean on that right now. So a few things that aren't obvious, and I don't know that they're super well documented, although I'm not the kind of guy that, delves into the documentation. That's definitely a personal failing. I kind of like just to get things going and sort of work out my problems as I go along. Can't say that that's the best approach, but it's definitely an approach I take. So here's that CDN. You guys have all seen this before. This is just so you believe me, I'll copy and paste this thing. And this is in the layout.erb file, just in case you're wondering where I'm coming from here. So you've seen this link attribute, you've seen, this link tag, and you've seen the style sheet attribute and the type attribute and all this kind of stuff. Just paste that CDN address in that href attribute. So there's still another part to this. We still need that JavaScript as well. And for this, actually, you know what? I know that there's going to be a failure, but I'm going to show you how to detect that failure and solve it. So I'm going to kind of do it the naive way and just discover the failure as it comes up. So right here at the bottom, this is what we like to do with JavaScript. We like to put it right at the bottom of the body, like that. So I'm going to go nice and slow here. So 2 parts, JavaScript, CSS. It's a good idea now to just see if anything changes. So here's my hello world. This is just the typical thing you've seen for the last 6 weeks. If I press refresh, if I did everything right, oh yeah, look at that. It changed the font a little bit. So that's Bootstrap already kicking in. It just made it, it took away that standard Times New Roman serif font and gave us this slightly slicker looking sans serif font. I'm not actually sure which one it is. If you're curious, you can just right-hand click and inspect. You can set that as well. Oh, I just kind of gave away what I was doing there. Okay. Anyway, no point in beleaguering this. When I open this thing up, it says, Bootstrap's JavaScript requires jQuery. So I need some more software to make this thing work. And have you guys heard of jQuery? Probably. jQuery is pretty old, and it's good. People still use it. Lots and lots of people. I like to use a CDN for this one as well. Now, where on earth did my thing go? Sorry, bear with me a second. My entire window just disappeared. Now, did I close it? Oh, somehow I closed that. There we go. There we go. Now it's back. So son of a gun. Now, did I actually change that? There we go. I'm just trying to make this thing big without clicking on any buttons. There we go. Jeez. Okay, so back to this. I am missing jQuery. Now I could go and do all this kind of stuff. Let's just add jQuery. Let's not screw around. So let's say you find a jQuery CDN. This is just regular old JavaScript, but it makes things a lot nicer to program. So this one's probably a good one. And I just know from experience that Bootstrap 3 requires anything below. So I'm going to get the newest version that's going to work with it. And when you're working with this kind of stuff, it's a good idea to find the minimized version. Minimized just means that, you have all these nicely indented and spaced and variables and all this kind of stuff with sensible names, and it just runs it through a compiler of sorts and just squishes it down as small as possible, removes all unnecessary white space and displays it on one line. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to get this minimized version. I can use this handy tag here to copy it.
What does CDN stand for?
Content Delivery Network, I believe. The CD definitely is content delivery. Oh, still waiting for Cloud 9. Somehow I closed my browser. I don't know. I don't remember pressing that little X. Maybe it was the lightning outside. But, just to fill up the time here, if you're really interested in especially like the front end stuff, Bootstrap is really worthwhile to get to know. It makes, now that you've seen it, you're going to see like web applications that you definitely know are using Bootstrap because they kind of got a certain style. There's nothing wrong with that. And even the style part aside from it, you can create your own style. And just use leverage the way that Bootstrap allows you to organize a page into rows and columns. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Going back to layout.erb, and I'm just adding another bit of JavaScript. This is important to note. The order in which you load JavaScript into your browser is very important. We know that Bootstrap, just given that error message that we just saw, depends on jQuery. So now as a dependency, this has to be loaded first. First we need jQuery, then we need the Bootstrap JS. So now I think I still have it on my clipboard. There we go. So jQuery min, and let me show you what jQuery min looks like. And Bootstrap min as well. I got both the minimized versions. So I refresh, and hopefully that error will go away. Yep, no errors. Here's my sources. You can always take a peek of what's in there. Here's one from Cloudflare. So this is the jQuery one. So this is what I'm talking about when minified, right? It just reduces all your nicely created and sensible variable names down to like single letters, A, B, and C. And it takes out all the unnecessary white space. You're not going to find any enters or returns or tabs or spaces or anything. And this just makes it faster to transfer. So this is another reason why CDNs are kind of great too, because they just manage this stuff, and you're always going to get consistent. I hesitate to say compilation, but yeah, let's just say compilation. I don't know that that's truly compiling. So here's the JavaScript one, of course. So virtually impossible to debug. But there you go. The only spaces it gave us was to give us this MIT license information. Same with CSS. Here's the minified CSS. There it is. So it's like all on one line. You'd never be able to read that stuff. It doesn't matter if you can read it. Like the browser can read it, and that's what's important. Okay, so I've added Bootstrap, the script and the CSS, and jQuery. Now I'm going to create a partial for our menu, because I think this is really where you're going to see the benefit in using in jQuery is having a nice collapsible menu or a responsive menu. So this is going to be a brand new view, partial view, of course. We're going to call it menu.erb. And I am going to show you an example of where you can get this code. So if you say, like, this is how popular Bootstrap is. You can say Bootstrap responsive menu example. And there's tons of them, right? So a really good place to go, like, I mean, obviously the Bootstrap website is going to give you some good examples. I find this one actually a little bit more complicated than what I usually like to work with. But you'll get some ideas, and it gives you a place to launch from. So here's that example and all this code beneath it. So, it's not trivial stuff. It's reasonably complex, but you can get pretty far without even really fully understanding what's happening here, which is really the nice thing about it. So here's all the code it took to make this, which is very complicated. All I want is a login, right? So I'm going to show you the one I came up with, and I don't dare try to make this on the fly. So I'm going to copy and paste my prepared code, and we'll sort of walk through it. And just as a fair warning, I know in advance that this isn't going to work, and I'm going to show you some of the things that aren't immediately obvious about Bootstrap. So here's what I came up with. And you can see, I'll put this in the summary, or I'll see if I can condense it down just to make it, a little bit easier to manage. But some stuff that you're already familiar with. You've seen this nav tag. You probably haven't seen these navbar default classes. This is all Bootstrap stuff. This is coming out of that bootstrap.css. And this is of course documented over on the Bootstrap website. So if you're curious as to what your options are. This is what creates those three little lines that appear when it goes down to mobile size, and you press on that button and it expands the menu. Here are the actual, and here's that collapsible menu. So this is where that JavaScript comes in, which is kind of a shame because you can do this with straight CSS. You don't even need JavaScript, but someone already did it for you, so why not, right? Why reinvent the wheel? All that to say that I've only really got one option for your average user. Well, two options. You can log in if you haven't logged in already, or you can log out if you've already logged in. Now, if you're an administrative user, you can actually see all those different users. So let's see what this looks like right now. Now, I've created this menu.erb, but I have not actually added it to the layout. Now, here, let's just to prove it's still going to just say hello world. That's all I'm trying to say here. So I actually need to add this, and the best place to do this is in that layout. I'm going to put it right at the top. There's no reason why you couldn't put it at the bottom, and frankly, I'm not sure why people don't, because usually when I'm on my cell phone, I like to have that stuff within thumb's reach. So I've already seen this kind of stuff. This is all in that actions.rb file. When you render a view, you call it ERB. So nothing new here. Now, again, fair warning, this isn't going to work exactly as I want it to. Oh, well, that wasn't the exact error I was expecting. Oh, current user. I haven't defined current user yet. Oh, okay, so let's make our helper method. Sorry, let me show you where that error is coming from, just so you're not totally lost here. In my ERB file, I had a helper method, and I was just kind of taking this for granted because you guys did this last day. It's just something, a helper that brings in whatever user's currently logged in. So I haven't done that yet, at least not in our program here. So got to change up my script. Okay, so in actions.rb, this is where we define our view helpers, and so far we've got nothing in there. So this should be nothing new. You guys have seen this before, I think. I think we did this last time. I've simply defined a method called current user that, when called, wherever it may be called, sees if there is a session ID set. that user ID. That tells us if something has been logged in or someone has been logged in. If not logged in, and if this value is null, then it finds it from the database and it loads that user into here. So this should be enough to at least get rid of that error and see the error that I was hoping to see. Okay, there we go. Oh, and there's something really weird up there. How did that happen? So I've got this like max CDN thing. Did I like accidentally? Oh, okay. That's in layout. Oh yeah, look at that. That's really silly. Okay.
I thought that was purposeful.
That was definitely not purposeful. But you can see like the beginnings of my responsive website, right? I don't want to click on them because we're going to get like those Sinatra doesn't know this ditty kind of error message. But if I toggle this down, still not really working properly, right? It doesn't drop down, and everything's all squished up against the sides. Doesn't really look good. So now this is something that isn't really immediately obvious, at least not in my experience. Everything inside of a Bootstrap-driven front end, so to speak, is contained in a container. So I'm going to leave the menu as it is, and I'm going to define a container, and this is going to improve things just a little bit. Class equals container, just like that. So this is really a key to using Bootstrap's responsiveness, or leveraging its responsiveness. So it's going to be a very small improvement. Hello World and the menus are going to, or at least Hello World is going to come a little bit away from the edge. Yeah, I think you saw it there. Okay. So what else? So I got to follow my script so I don't go too crazy here. Let's see. What's this? Scenes. Okay, so let's actually let our user log in. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm going to keep this close at hand because this is really the error I want to drive home today. We're not quite ready for that one yet. So we're going to define a few routes. We want to get our index, which we've already done. We want the login route. We want the log out route. Come back to actions.rb. Just stick them all in there. So I've added 3 new things. Login, which renders a view that doesn't yet exist. The post, which is where the user, when he presses submit or send or log in or whatever the button says, this is where it gets retrieved from the database. If the user doesn't exist, then you get redirected to log in. And log out, which clears the session. So you guys hopefully remember this from last day, I hope. All right. So let's...
Did you not do session.mil before?
Well, I showed you 2 ways to do it. This is definitely my personal preferred way, but you can do it this way as well. So user ID equals nil. Yeah, I think that's kind of a hokey way to do it myself. I think this makes a heck of a lot more sense. Why do you want like old session data kicking around? The other way, I mean, you'd have to do it for every single key that you've been saving. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to need a login view. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And we'll kind of walk through it. Yeah, let's just do that and walk through it. So, new file, login.erb. You're going to see a little bit of Bootstrap in action here. Where'd he go? There we go. Now I kind of feel guilty for not getting more into Bootstrap. So this is why I kind of like, you guys are kind of working out the kinks for the next class. But I hope that this kind of gives you an idea of what is possible. Bootstrap is created on a grid system, rows and columns. And by default, well, not by default, I mean, this is the way it is. It has 12 columns, which you can put individual items into it. So if you look at this, I've created a form just like you're used to, and I've created a row in this form group. Let me just show you what that looks like, and then I'm going to cook up a much simpler example. But know that this is the usual login stuff. You see the input type with the password, you see the input type with the email, and you see the submit button. So nothing that you haven't seen before except for a whole bunch of Bootstrap styling. And I'll show you what all that means momentarily. So let's come to here. And I'm going to try to log in. This should take me to that view I just created. Still not responsive, right? This looks awful. I can't see anything. The only way I'm going to look at this thing is if I go, make it big like that. That looks a little bit better. And this isn't really what you're used to, I'm sure, as well. This is all Bootstrap styles with the buttons, the rounded corners on the boxes, and all this kind of stuff as well. So I think I can probably log in. If I give it my admin and my password is secret. Now this is going to fail because actually no, this should still work. Yeah, so it just redirects me back and it reveals to me the logo. And since this is an administrator, I also have a user's path, which doesn't exist. I'm going to, let's use the users as that simplified Bootstrap demo. So for now, we're going to come back to here, and I'm going to go completely off script. Watch this. New file, users.erb, and this is your introduction to Bootstrap. So Bootstrap has rows and columns. If you want something to go onto a line by itself, you give it a row. And if you want to divide stuff into columns, we'll use a div again. We just basically tell what device we're targeting. So in this case, I'm going to say a small device. And I'm going to have 12 columns. So this is intended to fill up the entire screen right across the board. So in that, I'm just going to give it some junk data. It's not junk, but it's not formatted either. It's just going to look kind of cruddy. Now, before I do that, let's make sure I actually define that route. Which I did not. I did not define a user's route. So what's going to happen? No, it's going to say Sinatra doesn't know that ditty. Watch what happens. And it's going to give you some very helpful code. This is uncharacteristically helpful, right? Because really, I can just take this, and I'm halfway there. So I can take this code that I just copied, come down to here, and paste it. And since, I wanted to show you guys some, get you into some good habits here, I'm also even going to comment it for you. It's not super meaningful, but it's actually a lot easier to read if you just make these small changes. So here, I need to retrieve all the users from the database. Users equals user.all, just like that. So now, still not going to look that great. But now we're going to start seeing this Bootstrap stuff. Uh-oh. Oh, right. Oh, hilarious. Okay. Hey, wait a minute. That should have worked. Why did that not work? Body yielded non-string value. I guess it's not a string. Let's try, just to prove that I'm not insane here, I'm going to find the first user and just output the user name. What? non-string value. Did I mess up the... Oh, shoot. Forgot to render the view. Dang. All right, there we go. Yeah, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Okay, users, let's try that. Keep my fingers crossed it didn't blow up again. There we go. Okay, so there's my username. I really wanted to show you what was in all of these guys. User.rb, layout.rb, menu.rb, users.erb. This is what I was trying to do before. Just show you that the content of that instance variable. Not pretty. Still never quite works out the way I hope. Okay, forget that. But let's just do this manually, and then we'll make it a little bit nicer because I really want you to see how Bootstrap works. So what I can do with this is maybe username only requires one column of space. I'm going to change this into a span. Does anyone remember what a span does versus a div?
It goes across the screen, so
yeah, basically, the div will break onto the next line, whereas a span will allow you to stack them up across the way. So, just as a very simple demo, and I can maybe assign 2 columns to email, and really that's all I've got there. But let's see how these things kind of stretch out. So there's admin occupying 2 columns, or sorry, 1 column, and admin at example occupying 2. I could do something like this. Now this one occupies 10 columns. So if you can imagine what's going to happen here, admin's going to have a whole bunch of white space behind it. You've got 12 columns to work with. And if you make these columns smaller, they start to stack on top of each other, which is, well, I mean, that's the intention. Let's come back to here. Right, because on a smaller screen, oh yeah, of course, I still haven't got to that point yet. On a smaller screen, you're going to be able to, take that one column, put another column underneath it, and it's supposed to make it look nicer, like it did on the Craigslist ad in Toronto. So, okay, we've got this basic, and now it gives us this. Hilarious. Okay, this was what I was working up to. I wanted to show you why there's like this one critical thing, and this is going to cause you a problem, I guarantee, if you try to do this yourself. You have to set the viewport. I've been holding this in my back pocket, and it's just not working out, so I'm just going to show you. In order for Bootstrap and whatever front-end system you're using to know to check the device, you have to set this meta tag. And all this does is, it just lets you do that. It just says, okay, well, let the user scale this, let him swipe with his fingers, and just check what's happening here. So if I do this now, this should work out a little bit better. And if you recall from one before, when I would make it small like the cell phone, this we call it the hamburger wouldn't appear. Now it does. So this looks a lot nicer. And if you make this even smaller, if I can, actually, let's just do this. Take this. I should be able to get these guys to stack up. Yeah, see, there now one falls below the other. And the bigger you get it, the more room you give it. I was actually intending to give this a little bit more room as well. Oh, I should have given it more room, but it didn't. Okay, that's okay. Let's just print all these guys out. And you've seen this all before, so we can use this very primitive understanding of Bootstrap, because really this is all it comes down to, is just rows and columns. And you've got 12 columns to work with. Just put however much data you want into each of those columns. I am going to iterate with an each operator, users.each do, like this, and I'll print them out one at a time. There we go. So one row for each. Got to dress this up a little bit. We'll take this guy out, this guy out, this guy out, and this guy out. So again, nothing super new. I'll leave this as it was. User email gets 10. Username gets 1. We press refresh, and I should see all 3 of my users. There we go. Okay, this isn't quite what I want though. So if I can line these up so that these all line up by increasing the space. So let's put this one down to 8 maybe. Let's just try it out. Whoops, there we go. I'll give this guy 4 spaces, 4 columns within which to do the layout. Did I blow this? No, that should be okay. I hope. No. Well, see, then they line up. When they get small, they don't. Isn't that interesting? You get down like this, and they start stacking up. Seems pretty trivial, but this is what Bootstrap does, and this is why people like it. Let's see. What if we change these to medium? Small, medium, and LG for large. Let's see if that makes a difference. Nope, didn't make a difference. Yeah, that's kind of irritating.
Because your intermediary columns are not filled with anything, though. If you have 4 columns,
no.
by the username, is that still going to provide all 4 columns each time?
Yes.
Or should you maybe try swapping the 8 and the 4 there?
No, I don't think that's the issue. Let me just take a quick look at my notes. Row. Huh. The only thing different is I kind of just dressed it up with some H tags. Hang on. Control Z. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I hate it when I run into these problems and I don't see the immediate solution. So user, that username. And I'm thinking that I might have missed a container somewhere. Oh, see, then they start overlapping like that. Isn't that funny? Okay, well, anyway, you get the idea. As I said, I really don't want to spend too much time on this. There's not much value in it for you unless you kind of get the idea yourself. And if you are interested in Bootstrap, well, at least hopefully this will get you kickstarted. Okay, so we created the users, user route. Now, this is actually the content of the lecture. So this is that part where we're doing these filters. So if I go to login, well, actually, I haven't even logged in already. That should already be a problem there, right? If I'm not a registered user, I shouldn't be able to go to users and see what's in there. I should only be able to see this if I'm an administrator. Okay, so this is where that filter comes in. If I come back to here and I find my application, or sorry, actions.erb, I can put a before filter on basically any path. Well, on any path, including like every path. So I say before users, do this. And I want to check to make sure that the user in question is in fact an administrator. So now I'm going to refresh your memories as to what was on the slides, just so you can see what we're doing here. So here it's just making sure that the comment that the user is trying to edit is does in fact belong to that user. I'm doing something very similar, except I am just making sure that the current user is an administrator. So I say if current user, which is this method right here, is an admin, then skip over all this. If he's not an admin, or she's not an admin, halt. Here's that error. 401 error, not authorized. Please render this view. We haven't created that view yet. So let's do that. New file, error, 401.erb. And for now, let's just, put something in there. We'll just say forbidden. Forbidden, just like that. So if everything works, I should be able to come up to here. I'm currently not logged in, and I know this because I can see the login screen. But if I refresh, I should see forbidden, I hope. Nope, something didn't go right. Oh, I didn't save. Didn't save, I can tell I didn't save because of that dot. Okay, let's try that again. Undefined method admin for nil class. So I have not logged in, which is actually not a bad thing. So let's try that with, let's say redirect. Okay, let's come back to here. If session we can redirect if no one's logged in yet. So let's do that. Let's say user equals current user. Say if user, do that. Otherwise, redirect to login. So not the worst mistake ever, but definitely some kinks that need to be worked out here. Let's try that again. I should go straight to the login page, which makes a heck of a lot more sense. There we go. All right, so let's try some guy at example.com. So he's not an administrator. You're not going to see the user's link up in the menu bar. So when I go to users, I should be forbidden. Yes, forbidden. Wonderful. That's exactly what I was hoping to see. And we can dress this up a little bit and really scare them, Let's grab 401. We'll say, or you should remember this trick from last day. We say user at IP request .ip. So you can get that user address. This is kind of what we were using when we were counting visitors on our site. You are not allowed to visit this page. H3. The police are on their way. Let's try that again. Much more terrifying message. There we are. The RCMP have been notified. All right. Okay. Okay, so just to prove that this actually does work, and actually I haven't proven anything yet, let's log out of here, and let's log back in as the administrator, because the administrator should have access to view all the users on the site. So log in, come back to here. And you're going to notice that I have one more option on my my menu bar here. And if you go down to cell phone size, this also gets included, like as you would expect, gets included onto here. So being the administrator, I go through that before filter, just checks to make sure that this admin flag has been set. Oh, I haven't logged in. What happened there? What did happen there? That's kind of weird. My server reset. Oh, I didn't set the... Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I don't know what exactly happened there. For some reason, I just kind of got lost, and that's definitely a problem. Well, let's not get into it. Not a big deal, because I'm already 10 minutes over where I want it to be. So now I'm struggling with whether to show you some more responsive stuff. You guys getting bored? You want to see some more responsive? Okay. So very, very simple stuff, but I think it's very valuable because this is where we're at on the slides now. We are right on this topic here using these media queries. And, all of this stuff, so I'm going to give you a very simple example. Here's the example. I don't know why I had this guy on my head today, but we'll use this example. So to do this, I need to create another set of style sheets. I've got all these wonderful style sheets coming from the CDN, which loads up the Bootstrap stuff, remember, down here. But I can't overwrite this, right? I mean, I could if I downloaded it and changed Bootstrap, but you don't want to do that. You want to just load another CSS file and just kind of overwrite the changes or overwrite the styles inside of Bootstrap, because Bootstrap's got a very distinctive style, and it's not going to, scream professional or creative if you're just adopting that style. So to do that, create your own style sheet. This is what we do. We always put these, we call them static assets because they don't really change. We put them in a public folder. And Sinatra is smart enough to know to look for all these static assets in the public folder. I'm going to put another folder inside that folder just called style sheets. And other things we put in here are images and JavaScript. There's probably other things as well, but those are the absolute most common. So create a new CSS style sheet. Create a new file. I always call it app.css. It doesn't matter what you call it. Call it styles. I've seen lots of people call it styles. I just call it app because I develop applications. So app, I'm just going to do some funny stuff with the background. So not too far from what you've seen before. I'm going to, what I want to see, where's my index? When I land on this page, this is like the hello world page. I just want to see a different picture. So we'll call it, we'll say it's a div. We'll give it an ID of hello pic. And now depending on how big the screen is, this picture is going to change. And it's like, it could be a physically smaller pic, in terms of width and height, or it could be just something more appropriate for viewing in portrait mode, or maybe in horizon mode, or whatever. But that's what's going to be contained here. So I don't really need this right now. Just to personalize it a bit, it might be a good idea to see if I'm logged in. If current user end. So I just want to customize the greeting. So if you've never logged in before, if you're not logged in yet, I want to say hello, whoever you are. Username. Probably a nicer, more efficient way to do that, but let's just make sure it works. So I'll come back to here. Here's the home page. Don't have a picture there yet, but there will be soon. I keep getting logged out. Look at that. Did I miss something? There's a real good chance I missed something. You've seen me do it a million times. Where? No, I got my session. Set the user ID. It's like it keeps restarting. It's funny. Okay, let's try logging in again. So we're going to try, we've already tried admin. We've tried some guy. Let's do some other guy. When I'm coming up with like test emails, this is always what I do. Or I just like have variations on my own name. So this, yeah, this one works. So some other guy, fantastic. Let's put a picture in there now. So I've defined this div element here in index, and I want this box to contain the picture. So I'll go to my app.css, and I hope you remember this stuff. This should all be a refresher. The hashtag means ID. What's class? How do I signify class? Just a period. Thank you. Wonderful. All right. So this is just for like the general purpose, everyday style setting. Nothing customized yet. So now I got to find a picture to put in here, and I can download it off the internet, or I can download it into my file. It doesn't really matter. For some reason, I don't know, I was thinking about young Einstein today. So if you guys remember Yahoo Serious, this guy. And the whole premise of the movie was that, you know, he's Australian and he's Einstein. If Einstein was an Australian, and he's trying to like split the atom to put bubbles into beer. And it's surprisingly insightful into the theory of, like, I never knew the theory of relativity until I saw young Einstein. And it's just ridiculous, right? So there you go. If you get the chance to see young Einstein, you will rival me in your knowledge of physics. All right. Let's find a nice big one. You guys can't see the dimensions. I can barely see. Oh, there's a nice big one. Okay, so we're going to see this one. If, you know, we're looking at this in full screen view, I'm just going to take this guy up here, and I'll put that in there, just like that. It's not going to work yet, but watch what happens. Let's make sure that that did work. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? What did I forget to do? I'm a forgetful guy. I think, yes, exactly. So I'm going to enter this app.css, and it's going to load as part of the header in my web page. So because it's in the public, I don't need to specify public. This is just a convention. I can dive right in and say style sheet. I know this like always throws you, especially newcomers. It throws me all the time too. I'm never quite sure. Oh yes, thank you. Style sheets. App.css, just like that. Yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your instinct, and you would not be incorrect, would be to put the public there.
And it would still work.
Would it? Let's try. If that does work, that's very courteous of Sinatra, because not all frameworks do that. I don't think it worked. No, I don't think it's because of this. Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. So that public is what's causing the problem. Let's take out that public like this. You know, that would be a very well-educated guess, but no, you don't want the public. I don't know why. It's just confusing.
It's in my personal stuff.
Different error. This one doesn't so much concern us. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this, but it says mixed content. This was served from an insecure page, and this is a secure page. It doesn't like that. And some browsers are more picky about that than others. That's not really a problem. It's still there. Let me show you. Well, I shouldn't speak too soon because I've been proven wrong in the past. But let's try, you know, just taking this guy out. And let's put this hello greeting inside this pic. And I think you're going to realize the problem right away when you see it. We'll see if it works, right? All right, here it goes. Oh, some of the picture, not all of the picture, right? So The reason is because we're just seeing that top little bit, and we didn't see it before because there's nothing to make the div expand. There's lots of tricky things you can do here, but this is actually pretty easy to fix in our situation. We can just set the vertical height, and I think you've probably seen me do this before. So I'll say height 100 VH. There's all sorts of different units of measurement. VH is one of them for vertical height. Still going to look kind of goofy. We're not going to spend all day trying to dress it up, but there we go. As soon as it loads. There we go. Woo! It's way too big for the screen. Way. And this side is hard to read. Maybe I should have picked a better one. Well, this is actually good leading into a demo of what you can do here. So inside this hello pick, let's say, no, not inside the hello pick. Let's make it a little bit easier to read. So let's see, do inside hello pick. I think color, that might work. I'm hoping that's going to change the color of that hello some other guy right there. There it goes. Okay. So let's not dwell too much on it, but let's make this picture change when it gets to smaller. Like this would be ideal for like a huge screen or something that's like 1900 pixels across. This is way too big for our screen up here. But when I make it into a smaller device, I want that to have an appropriate size picture. So let's find a different one. Here's Yahoo Serious again. Let's find something with an opposite color scheme. So we'll get this one here. This is a nice small one. That's a little too small. Let's try something bigger. I'm hoping for like a light color scheme so that we can change. Yeah, let's go with this. Let's be daring. Oh, not the page. I just want the picture. The image. There we go. Uh-oh. Tricky guys. Okay, can't use that one.
Can't you just right click it and go copy image location?
Yeah. Open image. Yeah, let's try it. Okay, so it's not quite the one I want. No, actually, that's not the one we want at all. I want that light background, this guy right here. So let's grab him. Save link. So I open image in new tab. There we go. All right, here we are. So all this to change the color of that font when we get to a smaller screen. So this is where we're going to make that media query. We're going to test and see how big this device is. And we prefix it with an ampersand. And I'm going to set it to max width. There's also max height and min width and min height. 600 pixels is probably reasonable. That's like a pretty small screen by today's standards, I think. And inside of this, we can redefine these values here. So I'm going to overwrite the values of hello pick inside this definition. So now we got, oh, that doesn't look right. Holy smokes. You know what that is? This is the base 64 encoding. How did I get that? Let's get rid of that. I just want, holy smokes. Okay, so that's why you can't do it. That's not a URL. That is,
that's an actual image set.
Yeah, exactly. This is, yeah, okay. Okay.
We don't like your games.
Yeah, no, that's pretty tricky. All right, let's try this one here. This one's a nice small image. View image.
Well, that one's even on photo with it.
Oh no! Can I just view this image? Why is Yahoo Serious so concerned about his image? What is this? Now he's like in a bathhouse. There's giving himself a haircut. How big is this one? Look at all this time we're wasting. Like, what a waste of time. Oh, that's a bitmap. Oh my goodness. You know, you tell this movie's from like 1987. That can't be that long ago. How about this one? He looks like a trustworthy fellow. View image. Ah, there we go. Looking very serious.
Well, that's so serious.
Let's just get rid of all this junk. All the way to the end. I don't even know how long that is. That's pretty long.
200 characters.
All right. So I was hoping to have like, you know, a really light background where the white wouldn't show up, but let's just try it anyway. See what it looks like. So now we're on the small one. That big image should be replaced. Oh, it might not be big enough. Or this might be too big, I should say. Whoop. What happened? Oh, I'm not logged in again. How does it keep logging out? That's no good. I think I screwed it up anyway because look how wide this thing is. 731. And I set it to what? Max? I set the max to 600. So let's fix that while we log in. And I'll, you know, just to hedge my bets here a little bit, I'll say 750. Oh, it did work. Let's try that again. That's not bad. Okay. Oh, no, it's not even doing it. Did I make a logic error? So if you get to a certain point, I was hoping, well, this is exactly what I was trying to demonstrate. But I was hoping to have this guy on the cell phone and then this guy on the desktop. There are other ways we can dress this up. You know, since we're in so deep anyway and wasting so much time, let's, how do we do this? Background, repeat, no repeat. There's also a way we can cover it too. So let's try this. We should only see one Yahoo Serious. Oh, God. Every time I refresh. That's not right. I don't know. I messed up something. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, part of your login doesn't register as secure.
Okay, so that's a little better. But I also want to just like cover it. So let's say background. Is it cover?
I think you just did background and then you put it inside the background. Cover.
I got to look it up. CSS background image cover. Background size. Okay, that's what we want. Background size. That's the nice thing about Cloud9. It actually does give you some very helpful hints every now and then. So this one will fix that other problem we had as well. I think. This one should be slightly more constrained if I don't get logged out. Oh, there it is. So now we can see the whole thing. When I go down to cell phone size, there we go. Looks a little bit nicer, right? Just some of the stuff. And like you can overwrite all of these things. So clearly this is inheriting these properties, right? All this stuff, I didn't have to type this stuff again. All I changed was the background image. Anything I don't touch remains the same. So like, for example, I was hoping to find something like with a white background where the white wouldn't show up. I'll change this to, I don't know, let's just say red. Red's too bright. Let's say yellow. Okay, so that should be yellow text. Doesn't log me out. And it logged me out. What's up with you today, Cloud9? Some other guy.
It's a good thing it remembers the other phone.
Yeah, that is okay. So now it's yellow. Now it's white, yellow, white, yellow, white. So, pretty trivial example, but this should give you some idea as to what you can do. And if you're curious about media queries, let's say CSS, media, portrait, for example. This is another very useful one when you turn your phone like this. Maybe it expands the image, maybe it shows a different image, maybe you can do whatever you want. But lots of different resources. I've never actually seen this one, so I'm going to click on it at my own risk here and at everybody's own risk. Not that I expect anything scandalous, but it might be just a waste of time. Yeah. I just kind of want a nice overview. Oh, now it's giving you device-specific stuff. Don't worry about device-specific. Just worry about sizes and dimensions. Okay. Sorry, that went way over time. Time is yours. I hope that was useful. And you have Nick and Grant's full attention.